Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. Sometimes when I'm reasoning about us, I know you got me, it's so effortless. Back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight, no, this time we're not safe and sound. Not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the news. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Blunty, for being here. How you doing, man?
Of course. I'm happy to be on the news. Happy to be here on a Tuesday
That's right.
with all the people.
I noticed
in chat.
something. I noticed something. I did like 5. I upload these videos as audio podcasts to my Patreon page. And I was like backed up by like 6 episodes, and I was running through them all. And I noticed that I always start the live stream by talking about what day it is. Like, it's Monday, it's Tuesday. I don't know. That's good or bad. People are. Do you have a new angle, Blunty? Kyle K says you have a new angle. Do your cameras new angle?
Maybe a little bit. I don't know. Maybe we could try to find it.
Oh, whatever.
Something like
Whatever
that.
works.
Yeah. New angle, same me, I think.
Well, thank goodness for that. I think we can all agree that is a benefit. Hello, chat. Welcome to the stream. We are going to do the FPV news. We're going to be talking about all the things. Well, probably not all the things, but some things that happened in FPV in the last week. If you guys know of anything that we should be talking about, anytime you're out there and you go, oh, that's interesting, email it to news@fpvknowitall.com, and we'll consider whether to include. Just do our job for us, basically, is what I'm saying. Right, Blunty?
Yeah.
So
we
what
get
have
the scoops from you guys, you know.
It's true. It is true. What do we got this week?
So this week we have, we're going to talk a little bit about some tracer range issues and possibly a fix coming out for those. Anybody with short tracer range maybe has some
What are you talking
solutions.
about? 25 kilometers, right? That's what they said.
To the moon.
Surely. TBS would not exaggerate their product specifications. Moving on.
Speaking of that, ImmersionRC has released some ghost latency testing, and compared to their new Race 250 mode, It does look like Ghost is, quite a bit faster than the Tracer latency
Ghost?
results.
Wow. Isn't that the entire point of Tracer, is that it's lower latency?
That is supposedly the results, but I mean, we'll look at those, but yeah, we'll cover that.
Yeah. All right.
There's a new long-range transmitter out by a company called Siyi, S-I-Y-I, I'm not sure how to say that, the FM30, so we'll discuss that. It's a pretty cheap 2.4 gigahertz transmitter, claiming some pretty crazy range.
Yeah, wow. $40 for...
Kabab.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Kabab over at FPVCycle's got some new 5-inch motors out. We'll talk about those. Another undisclosed sized motor.
He's ridiculous.
We'll discuss, they're actually doing a TFR for the inauguration, so we'll kind of discuss that. Flight advisory.
Yeah, don't, in case, here, I'll spoil it for us. Don't fry your freaking drone in Washington, D.C. right now, you freaking idiots. That's basically what the FAA said too, but with more words.
Speaking of the FAA gives an automated drone waiver to an American company. So essentially they're able to do some autonomous flights for the first time officially.
Yeah. The killbots are coming.
Rotor Riot has a rampage going on in South Carolina in May, so we'll discuss that.
Okay.
Speaking of Rotor Riot, Redcat is filing to be listed on the Nasdaq. We'll discuss that and those implications.
Yeah. What does it mean? Oh, no, I don't know. What does it mean? Anyway.
Dave C. has teased a new Nano long range. Looks to me like 65 millimeter props, but he's not really giving specs with just a single lithium-ion battery.
Yeah, he's the creator of the Flywoo. Well, he's the creator of the quad that the Flywoo Explorer is based on in this whole 4-inch micro long range category. So when he says he's working on some kind of a new nano long range, it's interesting.
The community spotlight today, we'll have a community spotlight. We'll look at a process somebody developed to put LEDs inside of the motor. That seems pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah.
Betaflight configurator. So we're going to go over a list of changes that are going to happen in Betaflight 4.3 with the configurator, and discuss some of those features and what they'll do for you. Maybe why you'll want to upgrade to 4.3 when it's out.
4.3 is I don't know if there's a date yet, but it's right around the corner. So it's got some really exciting stuff coming. Finally, some usability improvements instead of just deep PID loop changes that, anyway, make your quad fly better. How dare they? But.
And last but not least, we've got the Recon FPV, the HDLRC, Dave C inspired 5-inch micro long range. I think this one is actually especially interesting because not only is the frame a Dave C 5-inch frame, but they've got fail-safe insurance. So if you lose this thing, there's actually a way to kind of cover some of your loss there.
All right. Well, I thought going into this, when we were talking about it, we were like, I don't know, there's not a lot of stuff this week. There's a ton of stuff this week. What were we talking about?
Yeah, we pulled it together.
So let's get into it. And we're going to start out by talking about TBS Tracer. And you know what I should do first, Blunty, is I should pull up the Team Black Sheep page for TBS Tracer, and we should look at 15-mile, 25-kilometer range. Now, I think we all know that product, claims like this are oftentimes a little exaggerated. How exaggerated is this? Because people have been getting Tracer. They've been flying it in the real world. What kind of range are they seeing?
I mean, I've seen videos where people are fail-safing at like 2 to 3 kilometers. And this is like quite a bit. I mean, there's been quite a bit of posts on the Facebook groups and around, the different FPV places of people, talking about the range is just not there. And so turns out that there is actually a bug with the Tracer range. Trappy has identified some issues that's caused something they didn't expect in testing, and he says after this update everything should be back to normal and much closer to the expected range. So I guess we'll see if that's realistic or not.
This is the post that kicked it off. Hang on a second, sorry. This is the post that kicked it off. This post from Ivan Efimov asking, hello, has anyone really achieved more than a couple miles on TBS Tracer? I've found this video from this guy about how he struggles with only 1.5 miles of range. And Tracer, now TBS would say Tracer is not first and foremost designed for long range. It's designed for low latency and racing. But if you advertise 25 kilometers and you're only getting 2 or 3 kilometers maybe, then people are going to be super annoyed. And they are.
Yeah.
Now, TBS came back and said, "Oh, we looked at it. We found this bug." And I, by the way, I did my due diligence as an actual journalist, not really, and confirmed with Trappy, because I have Tracer and I'm going to be doing some testing with Tracer. I have been doing some, but not range testing. And he said, "Yeah, please wait. We're going to release a firmware update." There is part of me that wonders whether, I mean, oh yeah, no, there's a bug. Maybe there's not a bug. Maybe they're going to just tweak it somehow. Like, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if the range improves after this firmware update.
I agree with you. It's interesting, the way Trappy said it in one of the posts was, we repeatedly did the ranges we tested over and over and over again. That's exactly why it was a head scratcher. However, I'm going to keep this one close to my chest. It was too much work to get to the bottom of. So to me, this seems like he's either figured something out about that technology that they didn't know before, or this is just obscurity for nothing, but
yeah.
I could see, I guess, like edge cases where maybe the spectrum in Hong Kong is different, or there's some weird like edge case they didn't see, or it's really hard to know. But to me, it does seem pretty wild for them to be able to release an update like this, and suddenly people get 4 times the range or whatever.
That 4 times, you made that up, right? Or did he say that?
Well, no, but I mean, if they're claiming that they're not false claims, that people can get up to 15 miles.
Yeah. Well, I have a theory about the 25 kilometer range. I have a theory, and this is, I want to acknowledge right off the bat, I'm just pulling this right out of my butt. But people have said 25 kilometers, really? Because we're only seeing 2 or 3 kilometers in real life. And they said that was under certain test conditions. And they didn't reveal what the test conditions were. So certainly they could have just had a super high gain directional antenna and then flown straight out and back. I wonder whether it was done under higher output power. Because we know that they've teased that they might increase the output power via a firmware update. And so if I'm TBS, would I go, well, look, someday I'm going to release a 1 watt. So I'm going to advertise this as if it was outputting 1 watt because I'm going to do it someday. I wonder if that's how they actually got the 25 kilometers in there.
I'm going to say something which is actually maybe the opposite, which is I'm pretty sure they do these under the max power. I believe Trappy's original TBS, like his live stream that he did the release of Tracer with, he talked about how on Crossfire they do the testing at like 25 milliwatt or 10 milliwatt or something, and then Tracer's tested at 25 milliwatt to like ensure it was like super low. I'm not sure of exactly what the numbers were, but I know I'm pretty sure he specifically said it wasn't like super high power, because people were asking in chat, was this like something we can get?
I pulled my suggestion out of thin air, and yours is based on facts, so I guess we should listen to you. But
that's
no
for
one
what
knows.
I remember.
No one knows how they claim to get 25 km. Nobody's getting that today. So it'll be interesting to see. If you're having fail safes with Tracer, you could check for this firmware update. Make sure in TBS Agent X you have enabled the show beta firmware option in the settings. Otherwise, you won't see it, probably because they'll probably tag it as beta forever. But that's pretty interesting. Let's go from Tracer to ImmersionRC Ghost. Because, like we said, the message about Tracer is that if you want range, go with Crossfire. If you want latency, go with Tracer. So it would be kind of a big deal if Ghost beat Tracer on range, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it seems that way for sure.
Well, there have been some latency testing done recently. You were telling me about that. Let's see if I pull this up. Tell us about that while I pull this up.
We've got a couple different sets of latency testing. So ImmersionRC, Tony Cake did some latency testing.
I'm going to show that in a minute. Oh, no, wait, my bad. This is Tony Cake's. Yes. I don't know which of these to actually show. Oh.
Yeah,
anyway,
so
go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, we also have that Imager album. So yeah, I put basically Tony Cake did some testing on some different modes, the pure race mode on the Ghost, and there's also a new mode coming out called Race 250, which is the 250 hertz race mode that should be faster than the previous modes are. And if he actually did some comparison testing between Tracer and between Ghost, and it does look like, if you look at the testing, I actually put up another Tracer test as well, just to confirm that the Tracer test is accurate, from Alessandro at Express LRS, but because this is obviously done by a competitor.
Yeah, so this top one here that we're looking at was done by ImmersionRC, and it's showing Ghost having this is the distribution, it's a histogram of latency, but it's fairly flat, so it's fairly evenly distributed. It's showing Ghost having 4.6 millisecond latency, and Tracer having 6 millisecond latency. And for the record, that is stick to flight controller latency. That includes the input in the radio. Now, and you might be a little suspicious of that since Ghost is ImmersionRC as a competitor, but this is from Alessandro of Express LRS, and long story short, the average really jibes. So we, of course, have no independent verification of ImmersionRC's number.
Correct. So. I think the question is, again, something Tony says in that post is like, I think we're there now. He's like, I think we've made it to the consistent low latency packet world. And now it's time to work on other things, which is, I think, super fair,
Yeah. I do think that it's an interesting sort of dick waving contest of, well, ours is 4 milliseconds, ours is 5. But I sincerely doubt any pilot could tell the difference between 4 and 5 milliseconds. Like, I really agree we're at the place of diminishing returns. I talked to Tony about this afternoon. We had a conversation about something unrelated, and I asked him about it. And he made the argument that consistency of latency is more important than raw low numbers. And so, for example, if you have dropped packets, that's going to throw your latency off and create micro fail-safes, and that is as where they're focusing. We don't want to bury the lead here, though. Did you catch, chat, that there's a test firmware? There's 2 new flight modes in Ghost. One is that the pure race mode with no telemetry that uses LoRa has gone from 222 to 250 hertz. So you can have LoRa at 250 hertz with no telemetry, or there's a Tracer-like mode, which is 250 hertz with telemetry using FLRC encoding. So that's pretty exciting if you have Ghost.
Absolutely. Constant improvements. I think that's what we all wanted, was just constant improvements. So yeah.
I think a lot of people, when Tracer came out, looked at it and went, maybe I feel a little bad that I just bought Ghost, because Tracer's faster free update, low latency, and a different encoding. And then ImmersionRC was just like, yeah, okay, we got that. We'll see.
While we're on the Ghost topic, Ghost also has a new receiver. Maybe we can
let me get a picture of that up.
Ghost Addo Duo. So it's actually a true diversity receiver as opposed to antenna diversity.
Now, what's the difference there?
So antenna diversity would be mixing the antenna signals that go into a single receiver processor. So it's like one receiver, but it's like averaging, I guess. I don't know if it's averaging or using the better. I think it's like some sort of mix.
Uses the better. Typically uses the better. It'll take the better of the 2 antennas, but it's only listening on one antenna at once.
Right, and this is actually using 2 different receiver processors and setups, so that you're actually getting 2 separate signals in and processed through the receiver.
Yeah. So it can literally receive both at the same time and pick the best one. Whereas with traditional diversity, if you're listening and it's the middle of one packet and the packet gets corrupted for some reason, well, that packet's gone. And you could maybe go, oh, maybe I'd do better over on this other antenna. And maybe you will. But with a true diversity, you don't lose that packet if you are listening on both at the same time, basically. And Tony's claim...
you still see both packets no matter what.
Yeah. And Tony's claim is he's been testing this with the X-Blades guys, the X-Blades racing team, for months now, and it goes back to what he was saying about consistency and latency and the elimination of drop packets and micro fail-safes being more important than raw latency. Of course, well, I was about to say, well, he would say that since Ghost doesn't have the faster latency than Tracer, but actually, according to one test, maybe it does. So, anyway.
Yeah, it's also something to be, I'm not sure if I know the answer to this, but to me, I'm sure consistency is what you want. But I'm not sure, like, how big of a deal is a drop packet when you have 250 drop packets a second? And, I guess you're losing one 4-millisecond packet, right? So you're basically skipping to 8 millisecond for the frame or something like that, depending on the...
I see what you're getting at, yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm sure it is a big deal, but I think as we get down here and as we get the consistency, I think that stuff actually matters less because we're just like, we're crunching everything down so tight that, I wonder what the difference is. The other thing I think we should mention is that some people in the Discord have mentioned video latency versus control link latency. And I think the big difference is video link latency is what you're getting back. Control link is what you're putting out. So control link latency is important because it's like, it's what's the PID loop is using to control to the gyro, like your stick input, your RC input is based on that time frame difference.
Well, we could dive into this topic. I just had a topic about latency. My argument is that latency is a loop. And so when you add latency anywhere in the process, it's the same effect. Adding to the video latency or adding to the control latency means that the whole control loop gets slower. So my opinion, and I don't have any data to back this up, but my opinion is there's no difference between control latency or video latency. That's just me.
My intuitive part of that would be that you could choose when to do something as opposed to just taking feedback from the video. So like if you see... Does that make sense? So if you see
how do you know where you are except by looking at the video?
Because you've learned over time. That's my thing.
I guess you could argue that if you're going pure muscle memory, I don't know.
Because every time you've cut around that gate, I don't know. I would think because every time you've cut around that gate over and over and over again, you've learned that, if I flick the stick faster, even if I'm not seeing it, the response happen, I'm getting the control input faster, and then I'm getting the response even though I don't see it in the video.
I would be very interested. I don't know how you would run this test. I would be very interested to run a test where you selectively add control latency or video latency in the same amount to see how it makes a difference. But I don't know how you would run that. All right, moving on.
More transmitter stuff.
Okay,
We're going to look at the FM30 long-range transmitter by Siyi?
Siyi? I don't know. Oh, whoops. So this is the RC Group's thread for it. I'm not sure. Is it even for sale right now, or is it just announced?
I think it's just been announced. But I think they at least have some in testing. I know they've got some test videos out of their side of things, but it just seems interesting because they're actually claiming, maybe this is like the TBS claims, it's hard to know, but they're claiming 30 kilometers on 200 milliwatts, which is pretty good, which is like going to be basically like a, I guess really good 2.4 gig. Yeah, it's like really good 2.4 gig LoRa.
Yeah. So, I mean, are we assuming this is a LoRa device similar to Ghost? And
I do remember reading something in the thread there that maybe there was some proprietary stuff going on.
Yeah. Now, they are claiming data link, telemetry, and Bluetooth. Let's see. Telemetry, Bluetooth, radio module. They're not gonna spill their secret sauce. 30-kilometer range. I'll believe it when I see it, but it's plausible. 2.4 gig. I guess so. Here's my point. Here's my thought about this. That's cool. Oh, wrong scene there. There you are. That's cool. But given how established Ghost, Tracer, even FreeSky are, it feels like such a risky move to go to this, because you're going to spend so much money on receivers, and then if it turns out they have some problem, you're going to be screwed if they don't support it with firmware updates. I think it's a really weird time for a new company to come in with a new module and stuff. It's just so hard to recommend it, Because how much is $40 for the module? I guess that's pretty cheap. I mean, somebody was going to go for it because they're extremely budget constrained. But I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, I think it's interesting to see these. And if it is the LoRa chip, it's just another option for the LoRa chip at a different price point, maybe form factor. Also, we've seen things like Express LRS pop up that uses cheap hardware like this. So
yeah, so if you're someone who wants long range on a budget, I would rather buy FreeSky R9 receivers and put Express LRS on them than buy into a hardware ecosystem that is like I hate to do this because this is a new company and they deserve a shot. But anybody who buys into this is taking a big chance that they'll still be around in a year, that they'll still be releasing firmware updates and making hardware. And at least with FreeSky R9, you know what you're getting when you put Express LRS on it. I'm not recommending FreeSky R9. So anyway, interesting. Someone out there's going to buy it.
Yeah.
Let me take a second before we proceed to get some of these super chats out of the way. Thank you to everyone who's leaving the super chats. Tuner Taxi FPV, thanks for a $2 super chat. Can you help Siyi with his BattleBot build? Siyi doing a BattleBot build? I hadn't heard about that.
I haven't seen that, but that sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah. Johnny DRC, thanks for $5. I pulled the TX pad on my flight controller. Can I use one of the pads on my Crossfire receiver? What video do I look for? You pulled the TX pad. You lifted a UART pad, and now you want to use your. I don't know what you're. I'm not sure what you're asking, Johnny D. And this isn't. You better just email me, and we'll try and sort it out. But I'm not actually even sure what you're asking. Johnny Marino, thank you for a $10 super chat. How many licks does it take to get to the center of a Tootsie Roll Tootsie Pop? I believe Mr. Beast answered that. He licked Tootsie Pops to get to the answer, or maybe Mark. Rober.
I'm in the 3 category.
3. I definitely get past 3, but thank you for your contribution, Johnny Marino. Ben T, thanks for a $10 super chat. When the new autonomous drones start getting spotted by members of the lay community, who do you think they'll blame? I don't know. Who will they blame? Spotted. They'll blame us, I think is what you're implying, Ben. They'll blame hobbyists. What are you going to do? Sorry, Blunty, go ahead. You got something?
It's always going to be the blame game regardless. That's the world we live in. We can't I don't know. You can't do policy. You can't change how you're going to work on stuff based on public perception of something they don't understand. That's what I would say.
I mean, you got to make a decision about that. There's a place for trying to improve public perception, but at some point you can go, hey, this isn't worth it. Thank you, C Young 300 for a $10 super chat because we rock. I agree, we do rock. Thank you, Zotech, for a $100 super chat. That's a giant super chat. United we fly, together we bleed FPV. For $100, I agree. We bleed FPV. I hope that
since he gave $100, can I give him a shout out real quick? That's Zotech from We Bleed FPV. WeBleedFPV.com. He makes the racing gates I actually have right behind me here.
Yes, I know who that is.
Excellent LED racing gates. He also supports the scene locally where he is.
Oh, is he local?
He supports the online scene. No, I believe he's up in New York.
Okay, he's not
or New Jersey. Yeah, but I know he goes out to the local races there and sells stuff at the races. And I just he's a really great member of the community. So I'd love to shout him out.
Awesome. Well, I actually gave away some of his race gates in one of my new product roundups, actually.
Yeah. Yep.
So super appreciate his generosity. And we'll give him a little shout out. Does that make this a sponsored live stream? Well, there was no explicit quid pro quo, but there was a quid and there was a quo.
So no, he's really just a good guy. Like I said, he supports a lot of the streams, the sim races. He put up money for our Newbie Drone Whoop series and stuff. So just a cool guy.
Awesome. This guy, Eddie X, I see your question. This isn't really a Q&A stream. It's a news stream. So email me and I'll help you out. But I did want to acknowledge I saw your question. Static FPV, thanks for a $4 super chat. Nice discussion about latency. Both sides hold truth. Oh, cool. Toxic FPV, thanks for $5 for the BattleBot fund. What is the BattleBot? I'm not building a BattleBot. Am I?
I don't know anything about a BattleBot fund.
Okay. Thank you for your donation. All right, let's continue. Blunty, what do we got next?
We're going to look at another new product. Kabab FPV over at FPVCycle has released some new 5-inch motors. He's got
what size are they?
Versions. they are 5-inch motors.
5-inch motors. I mean, no. What size are they? Like 2207, 2306? Come on, Blunty. Just tell me what size they are.
5-inch motors.
I feel like we're doing that old comedy routine. Who's on first?
Who's on first? Yeah.
What size are the motors? Just tell me.
Yeah, I think these seem super promising. Kabab's always trying to revolutionize getting people to produce more motors and stuff. So, I think as with most of his motors have been, these are probably heavily tested, and he's making them because he feels like they're necessary to make. So,
yeah.
I think a lot of people have had good feedback about the 30mm motor we talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
And
for 6 or 7-inch props.
Yeah, I think this is in the same vein. He's saying they're tuning this for, they're trying to find a 5.25-inch prop for this motor.
No, that's interesting right there. He mentioned this to me in a conversation a while back, but apparently he's released that information. He thinks that 5.5 1/4 props are going to be like the new hotness.
Yeah. And I think this is kind of in the same vein. He's making the motor for that. It says down at the bottom, compared to a typical 2306, this motor stator is 18% larger by volume and a 16% greater surface area.
So we should be able to work out the dimensions.
Yeah. And I'm sure as soon as everybody gets these, they can measure them. I think there's just some obfuscation there. So they're not producing these 2 months ahead in China.
Yeah. Very interesting. Kabab knows motors. I'm sincerely interested and tempted. $25 is not cheap either. That's for the quote unquote Imperial. What about the standard? Is only $20. He says they're both made to the same level of quality, just one is cosmetically a little not as premium.
Yeah, I think they're two different manufacturers.
Right. Cool. Well, if you're looking for $20 motors for your 5-inch, if they're in stock, no, they're sold out. See, that's the problem with FPVCycle. It's freaking constantly sold out. Ouch.
Yeah, I think he's trying to stock these up really hard. So I think he's just starting to get these in. So keep an eye out. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Notify when available. All right. Let's move on to. Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is something I know you wanted to talk about, the flight advisory for the presidential inauguration.
Yes. Chat. You behave, chat. You behave yourselves. We're going to talk about the presidential inauguration, and I want you to be on your best behavior. And basically, there's been a TFR, a temporary flight restriction, announced. I'll put it up on screen here. The long and short of it is, don't fly your frickin' drone in Washington, D.C. this weekend. Of course. But if you needed to be told, now we are telling you. Flight advisory. This is, by the way, you asked me before the chat, Blunty. You were like, do you think this is like because of all the drama? And I was like, I'm pretty sure they always do a TFR for the inauguration. Anyway, this is what a TFR looks like, in case you've never seen one. Yeah. Any additional thoughts, Blunty?
No, I think it's pretty much common sense, or it should be. But don't rip DC.
Yeah, I mean, DC is pretty much always a no-fly zone.
Right. Yeah. It's definitely not my first choice for a place to fly.
No. When we were at the protest in January of last year, there were a whole bunch of people from the DC area who came, and we were like, so where do you guys fly? And they were like, not DC. They have all these areas around DC outside of the no-fly zone. But so, yep. All right. Don't fly in DC. Now you know. We've done our part. Community service. So, we got another piece of FAA-related news. Go ahead.
Yeah, people who are allowed to fly is this American company
Nice segue.
American Robotics. They're doing R&D stuff and testing for autonomous flight. And, up to before, there was no real way to do it without a person. You could let it fly autonomously, but you had to have somebody watching it or monitoring it or whatever. So now they've actually been approved for a BVLOS waiver, essentially, the Beyond Visual Line of Sight waiver, that allows them to also not have a pilot on hand and also not do the normal pre-flight check stuff. So essentially, this is autonomous flight for the first time.
Truly autonomous drone flight for the first legal time.
For the first legal time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does. And the other interesting thing, this is still limited to 400 feet. It's still normal drone rules that we're expecting. And also, they're only allowing them in, it looks like, controlled access farmlands or rural environments, where they're already doing testing and stuff. So this isn't like they're not going to be able to go over the city to do these autonomous flights currently. But this is certainly much farther than any company has gotten before. And I think this is a big step for this side of drones.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody about waivers and BVLOS and how it could be possible to legally do. By the way, BVLOS, if you're not already aware, is Beyond Visual Line of Sight. And that's not just autonomous. Like, autonomous BVLOS is a whole separate thing. Like, normally, even if you got a BVLOS waiver, which nobody got, like, I think there might have been one person that got it. Even if you got a waiver, the pilot still had to be actively flying the aircraft. It wasn't allowed to just take off and fly a waypoint mission. So this is a step in a direction, and I think it's significant because it signals the direction that the FAA is going and that drones are going.
If you also think about like the way you would do testing on a new product, right? You have a facility out in middle of a big field, and you've got 50 of these drones, and you need to do testing on them for 1,000 hours apiece. Like, trying to have pilots scheduled for that and do flight plans and do pre-flight checks and follow the actual FAA rules for that kind of thing starts to get tedious and costly. And I think now they've opened a barrier there. So maybe now one person can watch 20 drones or 50 drones or whatever to do all these testing, and they can run overnight or 24 hours or different things that they might not have been able to do before, and possibly push this along a little faster. So
yeah, that's clearly where they're going.
I always like to see government regulation kind of back off for this kind of thing. I think that's positive. So.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to judge whether that's the government backing off. It is nice that it feels like this is an opening up of permissions, but the fact that they're going to let Google and Amazon and UPS fly BVLOS autonomously is hardly like you knew that was coming. It's not like you or I are going to be doing this anytime soon.
Right. That's very true.
Anyway, cool. Alrighty. So that's some FAA stuff. Now, let's do another piece of very significant news. Rotor Riot Rampage is coming. Yes, it's coming. Bardwell, South Carolina, Rotor Riot Rampage. I think we missed a year. May 15th, 16th, 2021. I think we did it in 2019 and then not 2020 because, I don't know, reasons. But if you are interested in going to a FPV freestyle event, check this out. And there is a flight edit up on the Rotor Riot channel that absolutely rips. Like, even if you're not going, you should go check this flight edit out. It's hot. It made me interrupt my live stream last night and walk out of the room. Vanover's Power Loop did.
Yeah, I actually got into the hobby about a year ago, so I've not heard of Rampage before. But yeah, it's cool that there's a festival like this. This seems similar to I/O in my head, except it's not like the same exact with racing and stuff. But
that's kind of the point. Is like there's several very big, very good racing events, but the Rotor Riot guys wanted to make a freestyle-focused event. Not that there's no racing at it. There are a couple racetracks and a couple races, but I was like a Tiny Whoop race. Newbie Drone sponsored a Tiny Whoop race at the last one, but it's more freestyle-focused with the goal of just giving people a chance to rip the kind of environment they may not be able to rip at their house in a legal and safe manner with permission. So
I guess I have to ask, will Bardwell be going to Barnwell?
Right. It's in Bardwell, South Carolina. It's a coincidence, I'm sure. Am I going? I am currently listed as attending. I said on my live stream last night that I'm going to look at the whole situation in May. And if it feels like it's a safe and responsible thing to do, then I'll do it. And if it doesn't, then I won't. So I can't 100% predict that I'm going to be there. I'm planning on being there. But, you just got to make a call about that. I know some people don't feel that way. Some people are like, what are you talking about? Shut up. Just go. I don't know. That's just where I'm at. But I feel like it's important to be honest about it because some people might be looking forward to seeing me there. And then if I turn out not to be there, I want to at least have predicted that that's a possibility. So.
Sure.
What about you? You think you're going to now put you on the spot? You think you're going?
No, probably not. I don't think so. South Carolina's a bit of a hike. So
yeah, you're in Denver. You're in Denver?
Yeah,
where are you in?
Denver, Colorado.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, in theory.
So just to mention, they're doing like a camping pass on this one. So there's like $1,000 for 5 people to camp, and you kind of get all the pilot passes and everything together. Or you can do. I just wanted to list real quick. A lot of the stuff sold out, but the regular pilot passes are still up, and those are $175. And then there's $35 for a spectator pass as well. So.
And some people are a little bit offended by the price. Like, why is it so expensive? And the problem is that you can only have so many pilots, period, before you start to get video interference. So there's literally there's the physics of electromagnetic radiation put a hard cap on the number of pilot passes you can sell before people would just not get any flight time because they would be getting knocked out of the air and so forth. And so you have the budget for the event, and then you have the number of pilots who you could possibly fit on the, and then you have to that's how you price it, you see? So, yeah. Anyway. Cool. Well, it should be possible to be reasonably safe at an FPV event. Because there's no reason why you have to be all up in each other's faces, and, we'll just have to see.
Yeah, especially not racing, because even, with racing, at least you're supposed to be closer together and there's groups of you and stuff. With this, it's kind of just a little more open. So
yeah, they'll have flight lines. I made a joke last night that if you've got there's going to be DJI pilots there, clearly, because it's a Rotor Riot event, and Rotor Riot loves DJI. So since DJI pilots have to maintain like 6 or 10 feet separation, it kind of forces you to do social distancing. Unlike analog pilots who can all sit in a cluster. Oh, Slidby FPV says, I call BS on that. They didn't think about that the first Rampage. The video sucked and no one played by the 25 milliwatt rule. Slidby, I acknowledge that it is super frustrating when everyone is ignoring the 25 milliwatt rule, or it seems like you're constantly getting stomped. I acknowledge that that's super frustrating and it sucks. I think that part of the problem with Rampage last year was that racers are culturally conditioned to obey the 25 milliwatt restriction, and freestyle pilots are not. And so then you bring a bunch of freestyle pilots here, and they're just like, YOLO! People were putting up tiny whoops in the freaking parking lot and just blasting people, and it sucked. I get that. I do want to challenge your claim that they didn't think about that at the first Rampage. You'll just have to take my word that an enormous amount of effort and thought went into where do we place the flight lines so we can maximize the separation between them, which flight lines can we have and can't we have, and where so much work was put into that, but there's only so much you can do. So anyway. All right, Blunty. Next. What do we got?
In sort of Rotor Riot news, their parent company, I guess is the best way to put it, Redcat Holdings, has now filed for an application for listing on the Nasdaq. Seems like a big step.
Yeah, I mean,
know Drew was pretty excited to talk about this.
I was trying to figure out what this means, but like they've been publicly listed, and you could buy Redcat stock if you wanted to. So someone out there who knows about stocks, tell me. I mean, I guess like it's prestigious, but what does it mean that they're now listed on the Nasdaq? So the chat will catch up. Anyway, Jeffrey Thompson. I have never heard him called Jeffrey before. Isn't that cute? Jeffrey Thompson, CEO. Redcat clearly trying to be like a real quote-unquote business. No mention of cryptocurrency, though, huh? What happened to cryptocurrency, Redcat?
They probably don't. I don't know how much they want to talk about crypto with SEC stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And if anybody wants to give Chad Capper a call, here's his phone number. Oh, he is the I don't know what that's probably an office number. He is their marketing officer. So, all right. Well, Redcat, they still out of Puerto Rico, Bobby Bags. Yeah, they're still based out of Puerto Rico as far as I know. It means they want the public to finance them. I mean, wasn't that true when they went public? I don't know. They were publicly listed. So they could they not sell stock when they did their reverse merger to get publicly listed? It's no longer an OTC stock. Well, okay, now we're getting somewhere. They have to disclose more info with the filings. Maybe it's easier to buy and sell. Anyway.
Yeah. I think
go ahead.
I think we're out of our element, Donnie.
Yeah, me too. But if you do call that number, don't mention Bardwell, says Kyle K. Thank you. All right. What do you want to do next? Go ahead.
I think we should talk about, this is really cool. Dave C., the 4-inch micro long range for fame, has now started working on a Nano long range. He actually doesn't give specs in the post other than the battery. Battery is a VTC6, so like a standard like 18650, 18500.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Instagram.
I'm guessing those are 65mm props. That's what those look like to me.
Yeah. Interesting.
So if that's the case, yeah, he's getting down there, that's for sure.
That's something. It reminds me philosophically of the baby tooth. And I know it's not, but it's a one-cell, micro, performance-oriented, lightweight. The baby tooth runs off like a 600 milliamp hour 1S. This is running off like a 3,000 milliamp hour 1S. It's
right.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's almost like, a stretched baby tooth or something.
I wonder what the performance... I mean, he focuses more on long range and cruising time than raw flight performance. I wonder how it flies. I don't know. It's crazy. I'm excited to see when he gets it worked out.
Yeah, cool to see what happens. He says it's a little heavy still, and he's still working out the kinks, and I don't think he wants anybody getting the information before he's done with it. But I think keep an eye on his Instagram and that sort of thing. And I think everything from him seems pretty promising. So
you might ask, like, I mean, how just put motors and props on it. What is there to kinks to work out? But especially when you get down to these smaller quads, the performance envelope is so small. You add 5 grams and suddenly you need a whole different motor, right? So it takes a lot of iteration to figure out like the exact right balance of prop and motor and battery. And then once you get it dialed in, you've got something that flies really well. And everybody goes, yeah, of course, you just use this motor and this prop. And then you get a million Flywheel Explorers. But
right.
Yeah. Dave C's a pretty cool guy. All right, we're coming up. Let's look at what else we got. Got 3 more topics. Let's do the community spotlight. Everybody knows that when you put LEDs on things, it makes them better, right? Computers put LEDs, better. Quadcopters, LEDs, better. And we just saw GemFan come out with these LED props, right?
Yeah.
But LEDs and props break. They're expensive. What if you could put LEDs right into your motors? like this crazy son of a bee. I'm trying to find the right freeze frame. Look what he did. Let's find a good freeze frame where it's in focus. What do you think of this, Blunty?
I think this is really awesome, man. Shadowwalker, who put up this video, actually sent this to me. And this seems like really neat. To me, I'm guessing this will end up being like less DIY and more motor companies doing this as a company.
Right. Yeah.
You know, at least that's what I would expect. But either way, this seems like a really cool idea, and I really can't believe we haven't seen this before, to be honest, because it doesn't seem like it impedes anything. It's kind of sitting like it's essentially race wire, but it's in the motor.
Exactly. We kind of have. That's what I was gonna say. We kind of have seen it. Oh, there you go. There's the money shot. We kind of have seen this before. If you have race wire with LEDs on it, that is exactly what's happening here. He's just threaded the LEDs into the motor stator. And that's why I agree with you, Blunty. It's not actually part of the motor wire. It's just wrapped around the stator. But it would be so easy for a manufacturer to do this, maybe even with a PCB instead of individual wires. For an individual person to do it, it's going to be kind of a pain. It's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, so something else too, they were kind of pointing out is that if you make the props the right way and you had kind of channels for the LEDs through the motor belt, I imagine you could effectively light the props with the LEDs in the motors as well.
So slick. I just wonder how it's going to look when you're flying. Like, it looks great here on the bench, but when you're flying, it's not actually that large of a light up area compared to like a prop, where the prop is fairly large disc or a circle. Here you've got kind of a small little, but I still am super excited and impressed.
Yeah, also kind of helps with orientation, and depending on what you're doing. But you can kind of tell where the quad's at in the air too, and you get different colors for the front and the back. So yeah, seems pretty neat.
/7FPV asks, who's allowed to fly at night? Hobbyists are allowed to fly at night without a waiver, and 107 pilots can get a night waiver. It's fairly easy to get a night waiver. RGMG, thanks for a $10 super chat. Thanks for all you do. It's appreciated. Yeah, big advantage, Richard. Thank you for pointing this out in the chat. Richard, big advantage of that setup is that there's no balance issues with the prop. When you're putting LEDs and batteries in the prop, then you have balance issues. This is no balance issues. Pretty slick.
Yeah, and you're changing batteries. So, this is powered from just like race wire is through the power that's going to the motor already.
Yep.
Whereas the LED props are going to have to change those batteries out.
Piranha 32 says in the Discord, I guess it depends on the prop acting as a light pipe. I think at this point, Piranha, he hasn't gotten that far. He's just gone, wouldn't this be badass? But I do think there's potential to have the prop kind of carry the light out from the motor. That'd be pretty slick. Yeah. Cool. That is his name. His information is in the video description along with all the other show notes. So.
Yeah, that was Shadow Walker. So now we're going to go to a little segment. We're going to cover some changes in Betaflight 4.3 and talk about what's coming up and maybe why you might get excited about 4.3. And
well,
I think there's enough stuff now that it's worth discussing. So.
Yeah. A lot of times a Betaflight release comes out and I do a what's new, and it's this really deep PID related stuff that maybe it makes your quad fly way better, but from a user's perspective, it's like, what is all this? But Betaflight 4.3, they've put a ton of work into usability improvements. So let's go on over here and let's take a look at what they got. Blunty, take us through it.
So first up on the list, we're going to look at some added sliders. Right now, this is kind of the beta view. We're still, I don't even think we have a release candidate out for 4.3 yet. But right now, this is what the configurator is looking like in the demo. So we've added a roll and pitch ratio slider. So that means, if you don't want to do the motor mixer, this is kind of an easy way to get that, whether roll or pitch needs to be the stronger axis.
Yeah.
D-min ratio and I-gain are also new sliders. It's possible now we can kind of tune D-min a little better. Maybe we can leave that on. And now I-gain is its own slider.
That's great. In the past, there was no slider for I-gain. You could change the master multiplier, which raised and lowered all the PIDs, but you couldn't just raise or lower the I-gain by itself. That's pretty slick. I'm happy about that. Let's see.
And then Yeah, so then we also have a project by Ivan and Mike Keller. And so it looks like it's actually going to go through. And this is the Betaflight firmware presets.
Where is that? Do we have a screenshot for that?
Unfortunately, I haven't seen it in the configurator yet.
Okay.
I think they're still working on that. But basically, it'll allow you to select presets in the configurator for tuning and rates. And so these changes for filters and the changes for PIDs and the presets that you might do for a 3-inch or a 5-inch or a 7-inch, now those can be, those can be preset options that you can choose in the configurator. And I know before there was a lot of feedback from the devs and stuff that said, oh, this is dangerous and it might hurt the quads, but they finally, I think, come to the fact that I don't think that's the case, and this is actually going to be quite helpful for users.
The Betaflight devs, God bless them, they work their butts off. No disrespect intended. They are so resistant to so many ideas that seem to me like just an obviously helpful thing. And they resist it on some ideological basis, some philosophical basis. Maybe from their perspective, it's a practical basis. And I'm like, but the end justifies the means. This would be so helpful. So you go and you say, well, let's have community presets. And in fact, iNav has presets for, all kinds of different quads. It's super helpful. And it's like, yeah, if you select the wrong preset, go ahead.
EmuFlight, I just want to mention, EmuFlight's had presets for quite a while. That's the first thing I saw with presets, like almost a year ago. And that's super helpful.
Don't say that Betaflight copied anything from EmuFlight. Just trust me, it's not worth it. Don't do it. I'm blinking SOS right now.
So I would say that I think this is a really cool feature.
I agree. I'm happy to see these presets. I hope that it'll be easy for people to create and share presets. That would be super cool as well.
They're just supposed to be like it's basically like a CLI text file, and so you'll get some presets like Talama and Crunk's presets that I think are really helpful for new people. So then we've also got when you enable RPM filtering now, Betaflight will automatically change the dynamic notch settings to the recommended settings,
which you've had to do manually before.
Yeah, so instead of having to go through and look up a preset from UAV Tech or Crunked or somebody, now you can actually see, at least in the filter settings, you don't have to watch a video to know how to change them. It'll automatically do it.
Well,
and when you change back from RPM filtering, it'll actually change them back for you. So,
well, I think that's bad. You just said they don't have to watch a video to teach them how to do it. I'm not okay with this. I want to show this real quick. Show this real quick. Someone. Oh, that's tiny. Really? Is that it?
Very small.
There we go. Here's the EmuFlight presets, giving credit where credit's due to EmuFlight, who's had this going for a while. So credit there. Thank you to Snoopy in the Discord for sharing that. Let's see. What else we got? What else is here in Betaflight 4.3?
We've got the IRC Ghost protocol is going to be added to Betaflight. So that's nice to see. We've got feed-forward interpolation and averaging is now out of the CLI into the GUI.
Cool. No one cares about that except Mark Spatz. But this one, everyone will care about.
We've now got a feature to reorder the motors without having to do motor remapping manually. Now there's a button in the CLI, and it'll go through and it'll spin each motor and it'll ask you to click them.
Oh my God! Wow, that's amazing.
What's wrong?
I can't think of anyone who's done that before. This is the first time this has ever been implemented in all of FPV. Flight 1.
Yeah. Hey, I can't complain about new features. That's for sure.
No, I'm glad they finally did it. I shouldn't bitch, because if they actually do implement a feature that I've been asking for a long time, and then I'm a dick about it, then they'll be like, fine, screw that guy, and they won't do it ever again. So thank you very much, Betaflight devs. Whoever did this, thank you very much. It's very helpful, and we really appreciate you.
Crunk says, thank you, Ivan. I believe it was Ivan who also worked on that other project. UAV Tech also reminds us that motor direction can be changed as well. So it'll be motor remapping and motor direction changing. So yeah, this should be quite a big difference for people.
Yeah, you don't have to go into BLHeli to change the motor direction. Basically, Betaflight remembers, and when it first starts up, it uses a D-shot command to reverse the motor if it needs to be reversed. So it saves you one trip out to BLHeli and back, potentially.
And the final thing I have on our list for today is you can enable and disable individual black box features to be recorded. I think this is pretty awesome for multiple people here, including you, I think.
Yes. Yep. I didn't know about this. I didn't look at this. You just added this to the show notes right before the show began. Oh my God, I'm so happy about this.
Yeah, it's awesome. Not only will this allow you to record just the sticks and things, I think that's kind of where you're going with this.
Yeah.
But also when you're doing the gyro recording for the, we've looked at the program to do the GoPro gyro data. Mm-hmm. Now you can cut out a lot of the unnecessary data and just get the gyro data to sync with your GoPro.
Yeah. The reason this is such a big deal is if you have a flight controller with a data flash chip, maybe it's got a 16 meg data flash chip and it holds 3 or 4 minutes of flying, perhaps, maybe a little more. But if all you need is the stick overlay, let's say you just want the stick overlay, you're not doing PID tuning, you're just like me, you're doing a flight tutorial. If you could turn off all the other crap that it was logging, you could get 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes of flying, I don't know. But Betaflight insists on logging everything all the time forever. So the ability to go into the CLI and turn some of this stuff off is going to really help anybody who has a data flash chip. If you have an SD card, kind of doesn't matter. Just log everything. Who cares? Sure. It's also, I have to say, I think it's also going to free up some processor cycles. The Betaflight devs have talked about how black box logging actually consumes a lot of processor cycles, and if you're right up against the edge of being overloaded, it can push you over. So this is pretty freaking slick.
UAV Tech also mentions in the chat that sliders will also be in the OSD that will make the 4.3. So you should be able to change sliders in your OSD while you're on your quad, which should be a big change, I think, for a lot of people. That's much quicker tuning. I mean, land, move a slider, fly again. Yeah.
Sliders haven't been in the OSD for a while, and that's really been missed. So Betaflight 4.3, I feel like Betaflight 4.2 had some flight improvements that made it fly better than, I mean, not everybody would agree. Some people still say Betaflight 357 is the best flying Betaflight, whatever. But I feel like Betaflight 2 was a big step forward in flight improvements, and now 4.3 is a big step forward in usability and so forth, and I'm super psyched about it. So
yeah, it's awesome, man. I love to see the development. That's for sure.
Big question being, when does it come out? I don't think we know yet. Is there a projected date?
I do not think so. The milestone is 91% complete. So we're getting
pretty close. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
Maybe in the next 2 months, I would guess, based on that.
Yeah, I think we always see the release candidates first, right? And then we'll see a couple of those probably, and we'll see the final version.
That's true. Crunked points out you can get on 4.3 right now if you're willing to run an untested nightly build, which is very risky, and normal people shouldn't do that. Oh, UAV Tech says DMA for black box to increase efficiency. We're thinking spring-ish. Adam Bostwick says, I bet it's out before OpenTX 2.4. Ha-ha! Yep.
I think everything is.
Which comes... This is my new t-shirt idea. Which is going to come first? Half-Life 3 or OpenTX 2.4?
That's a good one.
All right. One more thing.
Yeah, last but certainly not least, ReconFPV.com is a new company, I believe is Dave C. FPV's company. And he has a 5-inch micro long range he's selling through here with HGRC parts on it. And it's pretty cool. It's his frame inspired by him. But the cool thing about this is they're actually doing fail-safe insurance, which means that if you lose your quad and you've bought the fail-safe insurance, they'll just send you another one for half the price.
So here's what I gotta know, and this is the nightmare of anyone who implements any insurance or anything. Let's say that I decide to defraud you, which makes me a terrible person, but terrible people do exist. What stops me from pretending I lost? Because it's not like when you have a warranty on a frame, a lot of times they make you send them the frame, or they make you mark up or destroy the frame. But what stops you from just being like, yeah, I lost my quad, Dave. Send me a new quad. And then just keeping both quads.
It'll be interesting to see how this works out, but they're actually asking for the DVR.
Yeah.
They want to see your DVR, and when you lose that quad. So I'm not sure exactly what they'll be judging on that DVR for deciding, you know.
Yeah.
But they say a no recovery zone. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe if you see on the DVR it going right in the water or something.
Terms and conditions. Let's see. What are the terms and conditions? Let's read them carefully. We reserve the right to withhold service if we believe the crash has been caused purposefully by gross negligence or did not result in loss or destruction. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Yeah. Pandemic pilot, the DVR.
Choice to do this.
Sorry, Blunty. Go ahead.
It's a bold choice to do this, but what I will point out is that you still have to buy something. So they are making you buy the quad at half price, which if you think about what retail markup typically is, they're likely not losing money on this. They're breaking even or making a little bit from this, and they're just giving you opportunity to buy it much cheaper. So even if you defraud them, you likely just got a cheap quad versus them losing money on your insurance.
Excuse me. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense now. I mean, the smart way to do a plan like this is that the discount price still has a tiny amount of profit built in to cover your labor and your handling, so that even when people take advantage of the insurance, you're still not losing money. A more professional way to handle insurance, like the way that actual insurance companies do it, is they have actuarial tables and they play the odds. Right. But they can't afford to cover every single loss. But a plan like this, if you're getting half off, he could probably cover an unlimited number of losses and not actually lose money if he set it up smart. Right. Clever.
And it's still a benefit. I mean, it's not like that's a bad thing. I mean, the pilots you're still going to benefit from this if you throw this thing in the water and you get one for half price back. I mean, that's something you wouldn't have gotten otherwise.
And you're still flying his quads. Yeah. Steve Mann's got it figured out. And I don't even feel bad for saying this, because this is not like people are going to figure this out, but you get a different quad. You crash it in the river. You show him the DVR and you're like, "Oh, Dave, I lost my quad." That's how you do it. I mean, he has to have thought of that, right? I'm not
sure. Anyway. Yeah, you don't put out something like this without, I hope, considering the caveats. We
thought about that a lot when we were doing the Blaster motor program. I say we. I mean, I wasn't really in the meetings. When they said they were going to do the Blaster motor program at Rotor Riot, I was like, how are you going to avoid losing money if you're replacing them? They'd thought of those things, though. So, all right. Well, cool. Good for you, Recon FPV and Dave C. Definitely a guy who deserves a lot of success. So check him out. Links in the video description.
Yeah.
And that is it.
That's the news.
That's the end of the news. That's all the news. Yeah. Thank you, Blunty. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for putting together the most of the outline for us as well. I don't know if you guys know, but Blunty puts together the show notes and the outline for each of these episodes. I send him things throughout the week that I think might be good, but he does most of the work. So this is really your show as much as mine. You have another show too, don't you? You do a live stream 6 p.m. tomorrow. Is that right?
Yeah, 6 p.m. MST on Wednesdays. I do a live stream. We kind of talk about everything. We'll get to FPV too, but we could go 20 minutes about something that's not FPV related. It just depends on what's going on the night. We're just all hanging out and having a good time. So if you want to come check it out, come to my channel and
link in the video description.
Yeah, and then also don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you're not subscribed to Joshua's channel. Like or dislike if you dislike, that's fine. And then comment, do some engagement, that sort of thing. So.
Awesome.
Also,
thank you guys.
Real quick, don't forget to email news@fpvknowitall.com. We don't get a lot of emails, so any news, if you think we're missing stuff or there's something you don't see, we'd love to have it come in the news email so we could make sure we take care of it.
I should say, I'll bet a lot of people out there just see something interesting and go, they don't think, you probably assume that I already know about it. That is not true at all. Like, there are whole swaths of the FPV community that I just don't see on a day-to-day basis. So I really would encourage you, anytime you see something that's... Because here's the thing. I want to know about it. I want to increase my exposure and knowledge. Yep. So I would really encourage you guys to send to news@fpvknowitall.com. Thank you guys so much. I will see you next week, Sunday at 1, Monday at 8, and Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern are my current live streaming times. That's going to do it for this one. It's you know what night it is, Blunty?
Other than Tuesday? No.
It's Taco Tuesday.
Tuesday, awesome.
Taco Tuesday. So I'm going to go make tacos with my family. I'll see you guys later. Have a good night, everybody.
Cool.
Happy Taco Tuesday.
Later, guys.